How you doing, ladies and gents? Good to see you again. Obviously there hasn't been as many reviews as I'd like recently. It's been a bit of a busy time with the podcast. Been doing a lot of podcast based work, but it's cool. We're coming to a point now where we can kind of relax a little bit. We've got a nice cushion of 6 or 7 episodes, which means that I can invest more time in the YouTube channel and making these movie reviews, which I do love doing. Speaking of the podcast, link in the description, go and check that out. It's called Ironcast. It's all about music. But on to the subject of today's video, I'm going to be talking about Death Sentence from 2007. The movie was directed by James Wan and stars Kevin Bacon, and is based on the Brian Garfield novel Death Sentence, the sequel to Death Wish. Although it should be noted, this isn't actually a sequel to Death Wish, and from what I've read, this film doesn't have a great deal to do with the book Death Sentence anyway, so that can pretty much be ignored, the Death Wish link. So essentially the plot of the movie concerns Kevin Bacon playing a guy called Nick Hume. He works in insurance. He has quite an idyllic family life, 2 sons and a wife. And his older son is considering potentially a career in professional ice hockey. They get caught up in a gang initiation ceremony in which a member of a gang has to perform a random killing. His son is chosen as the target and is killed in what is made to look like a robbery, but is in fact a random murder. As the family are picking up the pieces, Nick is preparing to go to court to get the offender sentenced. But before the trial, he is informed that it is not likely that the sentence will be particularly heavy, given that there's very little evidence. Rather than go through with it and see the offender jailed to an insubstantial amount of time, he withdraws his plea and sees him walks free and decides to take his own revenge. He kills the murderer and enters into a vicious cycle in which members of the gang come for him, leading to some very bloody results. Death Wish, this movie is not. I'm just going to get it out there. This is you can't compare this movie to something like Death Wish. Obviously it has similar themes, a vigilante element. It doesn't have the nuance or the intelligence of Death Wish. What it does have, however, is a really, really nice visual style, which of course you would expect from James Wan. You know, he directed the first Saw movie, which is one of the most well-shot movies I've ever seen. All of the performances are kind of a bit campy and exaggerated. That's one thing I will say. I mean, Kevin Bacon has long been recognised for his ability as an actor. In terms of his performance, this is not one of his best films, I've got to be honest. And there are a lot of plot holes in the story as well, but, well, not plot holes, but things that don't really make a lot of sense. Like, for example, he goes and he kills this guy who murdered his son in the revenge killing, and the gang members decide that they're going to come for him and his family in retaliation. But these guys were happy to leave this guy at the crime scene. They were happy to abandon him there. So what makes him so special that they've got to go out and avenge his death now? It's kind of ridiculous if you think about it. You know, it just doesn't really make sense to me that they would do that. And that's the one big thing that I was questioning all the way through the movie. But I mean, I've got to say that this movie's strength isn't in that department. This movie's strength is in the fact that it's really quite a fun watch on screen. Of course, like I say, James Wan being a great director, there's a lot of really high impact gore that's very entertaining to watch. It's got his style, not to the full extent of Saw, but it's got a lot of that kind of choppiness, the kind of music video style that Saw had going on, is also to a slightly lesser extent, as I say, in this movie. Just to go back to the point about the plot not really making sense, there's a cop in this movie who follows the case really closely. She's the chick who played Charlie in Friends, who Ross went out with for a little while. She sees him get told that it's unlikely this guy will go down for any substantial length of time. She sees him withdraw his plea. She informs him that the guy has been killed in what appears to be a gang-related killing. Eventually, she obviously knows that he does it, but I think alarm bells should be ringing straight away at that point, but there is none of that. Like, it just seems like the police in this movie are totally pointless, you know? But again, I've got to come back to the same thing. This movie ain't about that. It's not a particularly intelligent movie, and I think that even the people who made it would admit that. It's definitely a film that is intended to be an incredibly fast, gory thrill ride. Essentially, like I say, a revenge movie that kind of channels the feeling of those sort of grindhousey, low budget exploitation revenge movies, the likes of Death Wish and other such movies. As I say, this movie is by no means anywhere near as good as Death Wish, but it is a sturdy enough movie that certainly does its best to get the job done. And the gore's really good as well. There's not too much CGI bumfuckery. There's plenty of really good, solid, practical gore going on. Although not particularly memorable and certainly not a classic, particularly in any regard, Death Sentence is a pretty enjoyable watch. It's not really got much more going on under the surface than you would find in the average revenge movie from the sort of 70s or 80s, but it is pretty enjoyable as a kind of tribute to those movies. So I've got to give it a 6 out of 10 overall. Thank you very much for watching this video, ladies and gentlemen. As I say, there's a link to my podcast in the description. Really appreciate you checking that out. Other than that, I'll see you next time I come to do a film review, which is in a second to me, but could be fucking weeks for you, you know. But I'll see you then.